Millionaire CEO Alexander Reed stopped in shock when a lonely little boy walked into his mansion and said he had come to find the man my mom trusted more than anyone. Everyone froze. The boy's clothes were torn, his voice steady, and his eyes locked on Alexander as if he knew him. Grace Miller stood speechless. Sam Ortiz, the Watchman, stepped forward with a nervous look that made the moment even heavier. Alexander had never seen the child before, yet the boy spoke his name with painful certainty. And then Sam whispered something that made Alexander's heart drop. Starting everything, Alexander Reed was known everywhere in the city. He was the millionaire CEO people called brilliant, cold, and impossible to read. His mansion sat on a quiet hill outside Seattle, with long glass windows and halls that echoed because he lived alone. He had success, money, and everything people wished for. Yet most days he returned to an empty house that felt more like a hotel than a home. A few miles away, life looked very different for Lucas Walker. The little boy had learned to survive on his own. He slept on worn-out beds in shelters, skipped meals when food ran out, and walked long blocks because he had nowhere safe to go. His mother, Maya, had been sick for months. She'd been taken to a small community hospital, leaving Lucas with one thing in his pocket: a torn piece of paper with Alexander Reed's name written in shaky handwriting. His mother had whispered, "Find him if I can't come back." Lucas held that paper like it was the last piece of hope he had. He had no idea who Alexander was. He only knew his mother trusted the name. So Lucas followed street signs, asked strangers for directions, and walked for hours until he reached a long road that led to a mansion he never imagined existed. He stood outside the iron gate with tired eyes and shoes that barely held together. Sam Ortiz, the Watchman, saw him first. Sam had worked the gate for years. He could read people the way others read books. When he looked at Lucas, he didn't see a lost child. He saw fear, determination, and something deeper, something that made his chest tighten. Lucas quietly asked to see Alexander Reed. Sam hesitated. Children didn't come to this place. Adults with suits and briefcases did. But something in Lucas's small voice made Sam open the gate instead of turning him away. Inside the house, Grace Miller, the housekeeper, was setting plates on the dining table when she heard the footsteps. She looked up and froze. A child in ragged clothes had never stepped into Alexander's world before. Grace rushed over with worry on her face, but Lucas kept his eyes on Alexander, who walked into the room at that exact moment. The contrast hit everyone at once. Alexander stood in a tailored suit worth more than everything Lucas owned. Behind him, polished floors, glass chandeliers, and shelves full of expensive art. In front of him, a hungry little boy clutching a torn piece of paper with his name. Grace felt her heart break. Sam stood in the doorway, uneasy. Alexander slowly stepped closer, confusion spreading across his face. Before he could ask anything, Lucas held out the paper and said, "My mom told me you would help me." The whole room went silent, and then Sam noticed something on the back of the paper, something that made his face drain of color. He didn't say it out loud, but the look in his eyes said it all. He had seen that handwriting before. Alexander stared at the torn paper in Lucas's hands, his mind racing. The handwriting felt familiar, but the situation was so strange he couldn't place it. Lucas stood small and quiet, waiting for a response, like kids do when they've run out of strength. Grace gently guided him to a chair and placed a warm plate of food in front of him. The boy ate fast. Too fast, like someone who wasn't used to having enough. Grace's eyes softened, and even Alexander felt something tug inside his chest. He cleared his throat. "Where is your mother now?" Lucas paused, swallowed hard, and looked down. "She told me to find you. She said you were the only name she trusted." His voice cracked, but he didn't cry. He said it like he'd rehearsed it for days. Alexander felt the air tighten around them. Of all the things the boy could have said, that was the last thing he expected. Sam shifted uncomfortably near the door. He looked like he wanted to step forward, but held himself back. To break the tension, Grace handed Lucas a soft blanket from the couch. He hugged it gently, almost surprised by the warmth. For a brief moment, Alexander saw a flash of peace on Lucas's face. It was heart-touching in a way that made him uncomfortable. This house rarely held tender moments. "Who wrote that name for you?" Alexander asked carefully. Lucas pulled the paper close to his chest. "My mom. She said you helped people once. She said you helped her." Another shock hit Alexander, but this time deeper. Years ago, he used to fund a small charity program that helped families struggling with medical bills. It had grown bigger, got new managers, and he eventually stepped back as his tech company exploded. He hadn't thought about the program in a long time. Sam finally stepped forward. "Mr. Reed, that handwriting on the back, I think I've seen it before. It looks like one of the old charity forms, the ones from before your program changed." His voice was low, uneasy. Alexander looked at the boy again, his heart heavy. "How long were you alone, Lucas?" "A few days," Lucas whispered. "I stayed near the hospital at first, but when they said she wasn't coming back yet, I remembered the paper, so I walked. I didn't want to go to strangers." Alexander felt something crack. The CEO part of him, the controlled, proper, measured side, stepped back. The human part stepped forward. Grace touched Lucas's shoulder. "You're safe here tonight. Don't worry, sweetheart." Lucas looked up at Alexander, and for the first time, hope flickered in his eyes. Alexander wasn't sure what to do. He had signed 1,000 contracts, faced investors, handled deals worth millions, but none of that prepared him for the quiet, desperate trust in a child's stare. He excused himself and walked out into the hallway, breathing hard. The weight of responsibility felt heavier than any business problem. The boy's words replayed in his mind. "She said you helped her." Sam followed him to the hall. "Sir, there's more," he said, voice strained. "I didn't want to bring it up in front of Lucas yet." Alexander turned sharply. "What more?" Sam held out a small folded paper he had found in Lucas's jacket pocket while hanging it up. This was tucked inside. ... It has your program's old logo and a date. Alexander opened it slowly. It was a hospital receipt, and under responsible party, the name written was Alexander Reed. His chest tightened. He didn't remember ever seeing it, but someone had linked his name to Lucas's mother years ago. Before Alexander could say anything, the doorbell rang, long, urgent, and loud. Grace rushed in. "Alexander, someone's at the gate." Sam stepped back, stunned. "Sir, you're not going to believe who it is." The suspense hit like a wave. Someone from Lucas's past had finally arrived. Alexander hurried toward the foyer, his heartbeat loud in his ears. Grace stood near the door, gripping the sides of her apron, while Sam checked the small monitor by the gate. His face tightened as the figure outside stepped closer into the porch light. "It's a social worker," Sam said quietly. "But she wasn't called by us." A tense silence filled the room. Alexander opened the heavy front door. A woman stood there with a worn leather bag and a serious expression. "I'm Dana Brooks," she introduced herself. I'm with Child Services. I received a report about a missing boy, Lucas Walker. Grace's breath caught. Lucas, hearing his name, peeked from behind the corner of the hallway. Dana's eyes softened at the sight of him, but sharpened again when she looked back at Alexander. I need to know how he got here, she said firmly, and why he has your name written on a medical slip. Lucas stepped forward, clutching the blanket Grace had given him. I came on my own, he said, voice trembling. I walked here. I wasn't taken. Dana nodded, but did not relax. Lucas, honey, when did you last see your mother? Lucas swallowed hard. She didn't wake up. They took her away. She told me to find him. He's the only name she trusted. Dana's expression changed, not cold, but deeply concerned. I need to confirm her condition. And I need to understand why a child was wandering the streets alone for days. Alexander stepped in. Let him stay here tonight. He's safe here. Dana hesitated. Mr. Reed, with all respect, you're a CEO known to the public. Children in crisis cases require proper procedure. And something about this situation doesn't add up. I'll need more information before making that decision. Sam cleared his throat. There's something you should see. He held up the folded hospital bill with Alexander's name written beside responsible party. Dana took it, studied it, and her face changed completely. Where did you get this? It was in his jacket pocket, Sam explained. Hidden. Dana turned to Alexander slowly. Why does this document suggest you were connected to Lucas's mother years ago? Did you know her? Did your charity fund her treatment? Alexander shook his head. I don't remember her, but the charity was under my name back then. It's possible someone else handled it. Dana stared at him, piecing things together. This is no coincidence. Someone intended for Lucas to end up here. Lucas looked between the adults, fear rising in his eyes. Please, he whispered, don't take me away. I found who I was supposed to find. The room fell quiet. Grace knelt beside Lucas and wrapped an arm around him. No one is taking you anywhere tonight, she whispered, though her voice wavered. Dana exhaled. Let me make some calls. Something about this case feels unfinished, and I need to confirm a detail about his mother. She stepped outside, phone already in hand. As the door closed, Sam turned to Alexander. Sir, he said, voice tense, if the system lost his mother, or if someone hid her case, then we are dealing with more than a missing parent. Before Alexander could answer, Dana rushed back, pale and shaken. She whispered, You need to hear this. It's about Maya Walker. Everyone froze, and the truth she was about to reveal would. Dana's voice shook as she stepped fully inside, closing the door behind her. I contacted the hospital, she said. Maya Walker, she's alive, but she's in critical condition, and there's something else you need to know. Lucas's breath hitched. His fingers tightened around Grace's hand. Alexander stepped forward, bracing himself. Sam waited near the hallway, tense as a wire. Dana held up a small digital tablet with the information she received. Maya listed only one emergency contact before she collapsed, she said quietly. One name, Alexander Reed. Everyone froze. Alexander felt the floor tilt. He had no memory of Maya, yet she had written his name as the only person she trusted. Dana continued. Her medical file states she once received assistance from a charity, a program under your name, a program that stopped responding to her messages months before she disappeared from their records. A heavy silence filled the mansion. Grace covered her mouth, her eyes watering. Lucas looked up at Alexander as if the entire world now depended on the next sentence he would say. Dana set the tablet down. There's more. The hospital found this in Maya's bag. She pulled out a small, faded photo. It showed Maya holding baby Lucas outside a clinic. Behind them, Standing in the background, unaware he was in the frame, was a young Alexander Reed. Grace gasped. Sam whispered, "No way." Alexander's chest tightened. The memory hit him in a sudden rush. An old clinic visit, meeting struggling families, promising the staff he would help fix the system. He remembered the young woman with hopeful eyes, but he had never known her name. Lucas stepped closer to him. "Did you know us?" His voice trembled, soft and scared. Alexander knelt to meet his eyes. "I didn't know then, but I won't walk away now." His voice cracked with honesty he couldn't hide. Dana wiped her eyes, moved by the moment, but stayed focused. "Mr. Reed, Maya asked the hospital one last thing when she was able to speak. She begged them to make sure her son reached you. She believed you'd protect him." Lucas started crying, burying his face into Grace's side. Grace held him tight, whispering comfort. But before anyone could breathe again, Dana received a sudden call. She listened, her face draining of color. She ended the call slowly and turned toward Alexander. "Something has happened at the hospital," she said in a shaken voice. "Maya, she's gone missing." The room fell into stunned silence, and the real storm was only beginning. Alexander shot to his feet, the shock hitting him harder than any business collapse he had ever faced. Missing? How could she be missing from a hospital? His voice trembled with fear he could no longer hide. Dana steadied herself. "The hospital says she was moved for testing, but when staff returned, the room was no discharge papers, no escort. She's just gone." Lucas clung to Grace's arm. "Please, please find my mom," he begged, tears pouring down his cheeks. The words cut straight through Alexander, deeper than anything had in years. "I will," Alexander said. "I swear to you, I will." With a determination that looked nothing like the man the world knew, he grabbed his keys and made urgent calls, contacts, doctors, anyone who could help. His voice carried raw emotion, not power. This was not a CEO demanding results. This was a man fighting for a child who had found his way into his heart. Sam stepped forward. "Sir, I think I know what happened." Everyone turned to him. "The charity records that went missing years ago? Someone tried to erase them for a reason. Someone with access. Someone who didn't want Maya's case traced back." Dana's eyes widened. "You think someone moved her to keep the truth hidden?" Sam nodded. "I think someone from the old charity branch panicked when Lucas showed up here." Alexander felt anger rise, sharp and cold. Whoever tried to erase her case, they're not keeping her away now. Dana's phone buzzed again. She looked at the message and gasped. They found security footage. A man leaving the hospital with a woman in a wheelchair. The woman is wearing Maya's gown. Lucas cried harder. "Mom?" Grace knelt beside him, pulling him into her arms. "We're going to bring her back, sweetheart." Sam looked at Alexander, voice firm. "Sir, give me the order. I'll go to the hospital myself. I'll find that footage. I'll track them." Alexander nodded, eyes fierce. "Go. Don't stop until you find her." Sam rushed out, leaving a heavy silence behind him. Dana placed a hand over her chest. If whoever took her was covering their tracks, she might be in danger. Alexander looked at Lucas, small, shaking, terrified. He lifted the boy into his arms, something he had never done with any child before. "You're not losing your mother," he whispered. "Not again. I won't let that happen." Just as Lucas clung to him, Grace looked out the front window and gasped. "Alexander, there's a car parked down the hill. Someone is watching the house." Alexander froze. The fight for Lucas's family had just turned into something far more dangerous. The car at the bottom of the hill was the final warning Alexander needed. He immediately called Sam, who was already at the hospital gathering information. Within an hour, Sam confirmed the truth. The man in the footage was a former charity employee who had been paid under the table to make certain cases disappear. Maya's case was one of them. And when Lucas resurfaced at Alexander's home, the man panicked and tried to move Maya before the truth reopened. With the help of law enforcement, Sam tracked the car to an abandoned warehouse near the harbor. There, they found Maya lying weak but conscious on a stretcher. She'd been left alone, frightened but alive. When Sam called Alexander with the news, Lucas cried with relief, clinging to Alexander's shirt with all the strength he had. Maya was taken back to the hospital under proper care this time. Alexander stayed by her side, signing forms, arranging specialists, and covering every expense without hesitation. Dana Brooks watched him and quietly said, "You're doing more than the system ever managed to do." There was no judgment left in her voice, only respect. Days later, Maya finally opened her eyes fully. The moment she saw her son curled up asleep beside her bed, she broke down in tears. Lucas woke up and hugged her tightly, his small arms shaking. Alexander stepped back, giving them space, his heart full in a way he couldn't explain. When Maya recovered enough to speak clearly, she whispered a truth that stunned him. "I left your name because years ago, you stayed after the clinic closed. You talked to me when others walked away. You told me not to lose hope." She smiled weakly. "I never forgot your kindness." Alexander didn't remember every detail, but he remembered the feeling. Wanting to help, wanting to make a difference. Somewhere along the climb to becoming a millionaire CEO. He had lost that part of himself, but Lucas had brought it back. Dana met with them again days later and delivered the final judgment. "Maya, with your recovery and Alexander's support, we are closing this case. Lucas stays with you, and if you agree," she smiled gently at Alexander, "he can continue helping as guardian support. This family is reunited." Maya reached for Alexander's hand. "We want you in our lives," she said softly. "If you want to be." Alexander didn't hesitate. "Yes, whatever Lucas needs, whatever you need, I'm here." Lucas placed something in Alexander's palm, a small folded paper airplane he'd made in the hospital waiting room. "It's for you," Lucas said, "because you helped us fly again." Alexander's throat tightened. Grace and Sam, standing nearby, both looked away to hide their tears. Months passed. The mansion on the hill changed. Warm meals, laughter, and small footsteps filled the spaces where silence once lived. Maya visited often, growing stronger each week. Grace became like an aunt. Sam remained a guardian for them all. One evening, as the sun set across the city, Alexander placed the paper airplane and the old hospital bracelet together inside a small frame. He set it on the mantel where everyone could see, a symbol of a broken past mended by kindness, a symbol of a family built not by blood, but by love and choice. Lucas climbed onto the couch beside him and leaned against his shoulder. "We're home now," he whispered. Alexander smiled, feeling the truth of it all the way through him. "Yeah," he said softly, "we're home." And for the first time in his life, the powerful millionaire CEO felt richer than any billionaire alive.